You ready for this? All right. The statements issued by hosts, co-hosts, guests, and anyone else appearing on the show do not reflect the stance of the College of New Jersey or the NJDOE OSE. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Welcome back to TCNJ AT Talks. We are the podcast affiliated with the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ, and we're here to inform, educate, and empower listeners about assistive technology. I'm your host, Brian Kenyon, owner of Kenyon Learning Consulting. And in this episode, we're thrilled to be joined by two incredible specialists. We have Anna Tellis, a teacher of the visually impaired, and Brianna Harrison, an orientation and mobility specialist. Together, they form a powerhouse team dedicated to helping students with visual impairments navigate their world with confidence. Anna and Brianna, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Anna, can you introduce yourself a little bit? Let us know a little more about you.
Yeah. My name is Anna Tellis. I am a teacher of the visually impaired. I am certified in both Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I've been teaching for about 10 years now, and I just really like to advocate for anything Braille and anything I can do for my students and just to raise awareness for this field. I also serve as a university representative for the Pennsylvania Advisory Committee on Education of Students who are blind or visually impaired, aka PACES. And we help to make recommendations to the Board of Education and just for different practices for students and their families. And I also love to give back to my community, and I coach field hockey for our Potts Grove Youth League. Um, when I'm not working, which is sometimes spending time with my dogs or my nephews or doing anything Braille or tennis. Those are my things.
That's cool. What are your dogs' names?
Vassal and Raptor.
Oh, cool. What kind of dogs are
They are two very adorable, needy pit bulls.
they? That's cool. All right. Brianna, what about you? Can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am an orientation and mobility specialist, and I have been certified since 2021. I typically work with kids in the 3 to 21-year-old range as an itinerant instructor. I've worked in Pennsylvania, in Delaware, in New Jersey, and I'm really passionate about my job.
That's cool.
When I'm not working, I like to exercise and run and read. And I have 2 kids. Would like to get a pet. Maybe I'll get a dog. But yeah,
What's the farthest you've ran? Do you do any like half marathons, 5Ks?
no. 5Ks, yes. Marathons, no. I feel like that's a little intense for me.
Too far? Too far.
A little too far.
Have you done a half marathon?
No.
No. Cool.
No, I haven't.
All right.
Brian, maybe one day. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to join a women's soccer league, truthfully.
That's cool.
I've been on the search and I can't find one.
I was going to ask, are there any ones in your local area?
I know. Maybe I just need to make one.
Yes. Did
Yeah.
you play soccer for a long time?
I did. And I coach my son, and my daughter's like almost old enough, so I'll probably end up coaching her. But I haven't played probably since high school, so it'd be nice to play.
That's cool. How old are your children?
My son's 6 and my daughter's 3.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. All right, good. So thanks for being on the show. First, we're going to start off with our mailbag. So every people can send in either through something called a speak pipe, or we have a Google form on the website where they can fill it out and they can ask their questions. So the first one is, hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm a 4th grade teacher. I have a student with low vision in my class for the first time. He has a tablet for magnification, but I'm struggling to get him the class worksheets in a digital format quickly enough. I feel like he's waiting while the other kids are starting. What's the most efficient way to manage accessible materials in a busy classroom? Thank you. So, what do we think? Anna, do you have any good suggestions for digital materials and all that?
Yes, lots. Um, The world is definitely changing with how we access materials, and things are increasingly becoming more digital. So I think the best way in the process kind of to help that is communication, one with the team and the teacher. If there's a para involved, of just keeping constant communication, having lesson plans shared with you in advance so that you know what's coming, and that way you can prep ahead of time. And then just going with the flow of technology, instead of fighting it and trying to use everything that we've always used, using things like the iPad to stream that to students basically automatically, can really help not only create access, but just kind of help the whole team and like the time involved. So I always make sure that even as an itinerant teacher, meaning I'm in different districts, that I get a district email from the district, because that way I can access the school curriculums and the actual learning platforms that the teachers are using. So I don't have to wait or email a teacher and say, "Hey, can you get me the next unit?" I automatically can just log on and then get digital copies of those, and then saving them as PDFs and putting them in a Google Drive folder, and then using apps like Notability or GoodNotes, to be able to open the worksheet like instantly, and then the student can access it. They can re-upload it to Google Drive or Google Classroom or print it out, and it just makes everything streamlined. Even just using like the Google system, the Google workspace of Google Docs, and having the students be able to access things on there, you can just collaborate a lot more and make kind of edits on the fly and those adaptations. So definitely, I think the iPad has been one of the biggest game changers of, um, within the last 10 years, and it's really exciting to have that access, because now it's not like if a teacher changes their lesson plans, it's like, okay, let me just take a picture really quick, turn it
Hmm.
into a PDF, and the student has access right away. And we teach the student how to do that too, so they can become independent, and they really like that access and availability too. So
Right. Here's our second question. I think Anna, you did actually before we get to that was a great answer. I don't think there's anything I can add to that either. I was thinking of the apps, and you noted you made a good example of two of them, Notability and Good Notes. Um, is the Apple Notes app, is that, can you use that one yet, or is that one good enough yet, like Notability or Good Notes?
you still can't zoom in.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that it would be fantastic. It would be better, honestly, I think, but you can't zoom into a picture. So, or like to a PDF and edit it like that. Like that part. I don't know why either. It doesn't
Yeah.
really make any sense to me. But
Yeah, there is something weird about it where like it almost separates it from the rest of the note for some reason. I've noticed that, and you're right. You can't zoom in. I did listen recently, and they are adding Markdown into Apple Notes, which means you can you're not limited by size of the text. So that,
okay.
I don't know about zooming in, but you can make text much bigger now, because I know it's limited to a certain size in when you use Apple Notes. Good.
Yeah.
All right, here's our second question. And I think this one's going to be more towards Brianna. Hello, my name is David. My 14-year-old son is visually impaired and has been hesitant to use his white cane in public because he's worried about what his friends will think. He's starting high school next year, and I'm concerned about him navigating a much larger building independently. Do you have any advice on how to build his confidence and encourage him to embrace his O&M tools?
Okay. So I've had this exact scenario happen a few times with my own students. And in my experience, a lot of times it is with the students that have low vision and they can manage getting around familiar, predictable areas on their own without a cane. But those same students have also confided in me that they've come up with ways to kind of avoid things. Like they'll avoid going out at night. I had a high school senior who was progressively losing his vision, and he said, "I just don't go out at night." Um, I've had students say that, they don't really feel comfortable, so they'll just decline going to, like, an unfamiliar place because they would rather just not use their cane, um, and just avoid the whole situation altogether. So that age is, like, super, super tough because we all know that, acceptance and inclusion from your peers is so important to kids at that age. So first, I would say just being patient and understanding supportive for your son is super important. Every person's acceptance and journey with the white cane is different. So just listening to him and his feelings is probably, going to go a super long way. At the same time, demonstrating that you're comfortable with him taking his cane out in public, and that's not a big deal. If he feels like you and your family are open to it and you're supportive and you're cool about it, it will definitely model that confidence for him so he can kind of start feeling it himself. The other thing I would say is getting him in contact with kids his own age that use white canes. So, if there's camps or events or activities where he can meet kids his own age that also use a white cane, that opportunity for him to share his lived experience with someone else that also has that is like super beneficial. And for me, O&M wise, I really just like to illustrate why I think the cane would benefit and how it can be a useful tool. And most times I'll offer, like, we'll just use this during our lessons so that you can gain these skills. And then you have it available to you and you can decide when you feel like you need it or are ready to use it. Specifically on the point of going to a new, larger high school, he should be getting orientation lessons to his new building before the school year starts. So that would also give him kind of a leg up on, just being familiar with the new layout in the larger building. So that would also give him kind of an opportunity to self-reflect on if he feels like maybe using the cane at high school would be beneficial to him if he gets the opportunity to go in there before school starts.
That's cool. So that means if he's gonna get he needs his schedule a little earlier than everyone else too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
If he's because he needs to be able to when he goes in,
Yep.
what's he gonna? Yeah,
Like figure out the whole routine of his day, where his locker is, how he's like homeroom class, all the classes that he'll be traveling throughout his day. Anything that he's gonna encounter or do, it would be great to do it before school starts.
cool. And are there any local Facebook groups in New Jersey or any camps that you can think of off the top of your head where kids can reach out and meet with each other?
So there's one I'll name drop. There's
Yeah.
one camp that I often recommend, Camp Abilities, because I just feel like it's a cool camp, where you get to be active, and a lot of times, like, that's not an option for, not that it's not an option, but it's not as readily available for kids that have a visual impairment. So, I know they offer camps at Rowan. Um, I think there's also one at Keene. I'm
Mm-hmm.
say that wrong.
Yep.
University.
Kane. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Um, and then Delaware has some. I think they're kind of all over, but there's lots of opportunities. I mean, Anna and I just went to the Pendel conference, and there's like a kayaking group in Pennsylvania where they offer like free like weekends where you can learn how to kayak and camp and things like that with kids that also have visual impairment. So it's just kind of like finding those resources and giving them a shot and seeing what you like.
Cool. Is there like a central area like is Facebook a great way to find those resources, or where can I find those resources?
Ooh. I feel like Facebook is kind of good, but honestly, I would reach out to your O&M instructor or your TVI because they probably have a better idea, um, and have more resources for you, I would say.
Cool. All right. Thank you for those excellent answers. I definitely wouldn't be able to answer them that well. So you guys did a great job. And if anyone would like to submit a question or leave a speak by message, please visit atcenter.tcnj.edu and you'll go into the podcast tab. And under there, you'll find the necessary links for how you want to leave it. Cool. So let's just start we'll start with what brought you both into the field. Anna, you're a TVI both in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. What inspired you to become, in your own words, a total Braille nerd and just dedicate your career to teaching students with visual impairments?
Yes, I am very proud to be a Braille nerd. Um, I I went to Kutztown University for my undergrad, and I originally wanted to be an art teacher, and we had to spend 3 hours every day drawing the same potted plant from different angles. And I said, I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. And so a professor had come into one of my gen ed classes and started talking about the vision program at Kutztown. And I was like, what is this? Because I grew up with my older sister has a chromatopsia, which is, it basically means that she sees no color. She sees everything in black and white. And she has some low vision kind of issues. And so growing up, my parents always just treated her like she was just Katie. And that's how we treated her. And it was just like, that's just who Katie is. And she might need different tools and really big books, but that's just what Katie needs. And it didn't stop her. She played ice hockey with guys and went to college with playing field hockey. She became a teacher. She never let it stop her, and it was always just like of us thinking like if we are gonna offer her a popsicle, we would say like, Katie, do you want red or green? Instead
Mhm.
of which one do you want? So just making little adaptations like that. I didn't know that that was like what we were doing, but that's just what Katie needed. So when the professor started talking about that, I was like, oh, this like reminds me of my sister. And I set up a time to talk to him, and he showed me a brailer, and it was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then I got into my braille class and I had that like, oh, moment of like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. So I always say that my sister like seeded my passion, and I'm really glad that it worked out, because now too having an art background gives me a really cool perspective in stuff I make for my students and creating just different things for them. It's an advantage, I think. And so now I actually part-time work at Kutztown University as the assistant coordinator of the program on visual impairment. We're one of 8 programs in the entire United States that offer this degree as an undergrad. So now I get to be that professor per se that goes into classes and tells people about the vision program and gets people to switch into the program. So it's a very wholesome and full circle moment. So I love it.
That's really cool. Um, well, and I work. We have a student together, and I've seen firsthand how good I'm not going to call it arts and crafts, but how good are at creating things. Sometimes I'm like completely impressed. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Where'd you come up with this? So you definitely are using that art background to your fullest extent. That's really
Yes.
cool.
And make it the coolest Halloween costumes.
Yes. It's very fun.
Mhm.
Brianna, you began your career as a physical therapist. What made you change? What was the realization that sparked your passion for O&M and led you to pursue that path?
So I started as a physical therapist assistant out of college, and I was working at an IU in Pennsylvania, and I had a student that I was seeing for PT that was blind. And part of his IEP team, obviously, was an orientation and mobility specialist. And that was literally the first time I've ever even heard the word or knew that it existed. And she was hands down the coolest O&M I've ever met. Um, and so fun and supportive. And I observed some of her lessons, and we collaborated a little bit on this student. And from literally that moment on, I was like, I think this is what I need to do. So I went back to Dallas and I got my master's in O&M, and I've never looked back, and I'm very, very happy with my with my decision.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What's an IU?
Mhm.
What's an IU?
The intermediate unit. Um, they kind of offer like related services into the public school systems in Pennsylvania.
Okay,
Again,
so that's
I live in New Jersey, and Anna could probably speak more to this, but um, at the IU that I worked at, there was a whole gamut. They had orientation and mobility specialists, TBIs, PTs, speech therapists, OTs, like every kind of related service you could probably think of. And they would contract with the school districts.
okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I may be way off. I've never heard of an IU in New Jersey, so that's the first time I think I've heard of that. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a New
Yeah.
Jersey thing, right?
Pennsylvania does it. So Pennsylvania does it by their special ed services by county. So each county has an itinerant or an intermediate unit, and then
Hmm.
that intermediate unit has all those itinerant teachers that then contract to the school districts. So some school districts will hire their own PT, OT, speech, TBI, if they have a caseload big enough. But other schools that it's not big enough, then they contract through the IU, where states like New Jersey and Delaware are a state-run organization of services. So they have,
Right.
like New Jersey just has the Commission for the Blind, and that's the entire state, whereas Pennsylvania breaks it up into counties. Um, it's just like a different way of how they do services.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you both have a deep passion for this work. So what's the most rewarding part of your jobs?
So I think the most rewarding thing for me is definitely just watching my students grow and be successful. Um, you guys know you can have a student for years. So, like, you can see their progress that they're making, and it's rewarding to see them like face those challenges, succeed, and then realize like maybe you had a small part in that.
Hmm.
Like even if it was like a little small part and like just giving them the confidence to think they could do it, or introducing them to this resource or whatever. So I feel like that's probably the most rewarding thing for me.
Cool. How about you, Anna?
I would say just allowing kids to be kids and letting them be seen as a kid and not a kid with a visual impairment, a kid who's blind, a kid that can't see, a kid like just a kid, and just embracing that and giving them the tools to just be as successful as they want to be. And like just allowing them that space, and their families as well, is like I'm looking at the kid, not all the other things that are going on. And when they get to just like be treated like that, it's a very, you just see a different part of the child. And it's very rewarding. So
Cool. Um, so for our listeners who might be new to some of these terms and what a TBI is and what an O&M does, could you break down your roles? What's like Anna, what's the primary focus of a TBI?
So a TBI, we are teachers, so it's not a therapy in any way. It is a teaching degree that you get. And essentially we are trying to take their visual impairment out of the equation. So we teach by whereas in the typical classroom, kids are learning the core curriculum, or the Common Core. We are teaching the expanded core curriculum, which is 9 areas of basically how vision impacts you every day, how it impacts the way you read and write, organize your materials, walk around a room, um, get dressed, like all of those different things that you don't think other kids don't necessarily have to be explicitly taught. We go in and we teach those skills so that that way the student can do them, because they might need a tool or a resource or be taught how to do a task that we take for granted every day. So we are doing that. We provide direct services to teach skills, and we also provide push-in services to support the teachers or any other adult working with the student. And we also adapt materials to make sure that the student can access them. So if they need things in large print, or they need it digitally, or they need it in Braille, we'll make those adaptations to make sure that they can go into class and learn the core curriculum without all the other things kind of getting in the way.
That's cool. The expanded core curriculum, where can I find that, or what is that?
It's called the Expanded Core Curriculum, or the ECC. If there's some really good resources, like Texas School for the Blind has some really good resources. Perkins has
Mm.
great resources. Paths to Literacy, all those different things. Basically, if you just Google ECC or Expanded Core Curriculum, you can find all different kind of resources and activities of how to support that in and out of the classroom. Because it's something that follows kids. It's not just in the school setting. It's like we're supporting the families at home too, of how do the kids get dressed? How do they make their lunch? How do they help with chores? Because just because you're blind doesn't mean you can't be putting away the groceries, or helping to create a list for the grocery store, or keeping track of that list. Those are all things that can be worked on, and they also carry over all of those skills, because that's reading and writing and organization, and just being a good human. So there's lots of resources out there, and you can kind of incorporate it um, in all areas of their day.
Brianna, how would you define the role of an O&M? What's orientation part? What's the mobility part?
Sure. Okay. So orientation and mobility, my job is to teach a person how to systematically attain orientation and to move safely within their environment when whether they're at home, at school, out in the community. So when I say orientation, I mean like using their senses so that they can determine where they are and um, how to get to where they want to be. And when I say mobility, I mean how can they do that safely? Whether that's learning skills like sighted guide or cane technique, um, protective techniques, all those kinds of things.
Cool.
That's
Good. I like it. How do your roles complement each other? Like Brianna, can you give us an example of how you would coordinate with Anna for a student you both share?
sure. So we do share a student, and I honestly feel so fortunate that I have Anna on my team. Um, so my role a lot of times is, I might see our student once a week, and it's kind of like a pull-out situation where I work on orientation and mobility skills. And, Anna's role is a little bit different, so she's in the classroom much more than I am, which is wonderful because we have a great relationship, so she can tell me things that she sees happening with our student, the little intricacies of her day that specifically pertain to me and O&M. So for example, you know, um if there's something new at recess that she's looking to try or anything. It literally could be anything. Um, um, Also, when I'm planning lessons like out in the community, asking Anna like, what's the best way for her to visually access something digitally,
Mhm.
and then she can kind of give me that like tip or hint so that it makes I'm kinda carrying over those skills that she's working on, but it's also really helping me because otherwise I'd be like, "What how do I do this? What am I supposed to do?" And, we've done a couple of lessons, and I know we're planning to do some more, but we've done a couple lessons that complement each other and our goals. One example is, I took our student out shopping out in the community, so we practiced, cane travel out in the community, and we bought a bunch of ingredients, and then Anna took those ingredients with our student and did like a whole baking lesson, where she worked on those ECC skills that she was just talking about. So it's definitely more beneficial to everyone, including the student, most importantly, the student, if you're working together.
What did the student end up baking? What was it? Cupcakes? What was it?
We made Rice Krispie
Cookies?
treats.
Turkey, right?
Rice Crisp?
Yes, and like
Yeah.
turkey shapes.
Yeah.
And I think it even had, braille letters on it with M&Ms.
Of course it did.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I would say if we were to call, because we actually all work together with the same student, if we were
Uh-huh.
to call it would be Anna and the Dream Team. That's what would be the name of our band. Not to make you feel too awkward, Anna, but
Yes, it would.
Anna, same question for you. How does Brianna's O&M plan, and we kind of heard some of it, what she was just talking about for a student, influence what you would do in the classroom?
Yeah, so it's all again about the collaboration of things and like you said it very well of like the just that I'm in the classroom a little bit more so there's things that I see and then I can say, "Hey, what is this supposed to be happening when we're going down the hallway or is this just like are we getting lazy with something or what's going on with that?" Or just, "Hey, I noticed or there's a play next week. Can you go practice the
Mm,
route to the stair up and down the risers?" Little things like that. So the more that we communicate, the more that it kind of all streamlines. Or the student they had a field trip to the aquarium. So it was we were both kind of going back and forth of like, oh, maybe we can do a monocular, which is like a telescope, and like trialing different things like that. So just using both of our experiences and our expertise to help the student. And I think with her and with any student that you do like joint lessons or lessons that connect, it helps the student to make those connections of, oh, like I'm using my cane at the store and then I'm getting things and then it's coming to school and then it's like we're all a part of this team, and when we all use the same lingo and terms, I think it holds the student more accountable, because when they try to get away with something with the other person, you're like, I know that that's not how you hold your cane. Like, that's not right. So it kind of, that really helps to just solidify those skills that we're all working on and carrying over, because they will try to get away with whatever they can get away with.
Yeah, because they're kids, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you guys both, it's the collaboration. Like it's getting that everyone on board, including the teacher, including the parent, including the parents, when we're trying new skill, an old skill, trying to get them to work on making Rice Krispie treats, right? Like
Mhm.
collaborate together. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think what Anna said was, like, super important, of just, like, seeing the meaning behind why we were doing it.
Hmm.
You know, like, if nothing ever came with those ingredients and nothing was ever made, or, you know, we just I didn't have the time to do that, it would be like, why do we even go there? Like, what was the point of that? You know what I mean? But seeing it go around full circle, it's like, "Oh, yeah, okay." Like, I makes sense, I totally get it.
Totally. Cool. Anna. Oh, Anna. Now this I know will be student or child specific, but can you tell us some of the key technologies you use? And I know you noted some of the note taking apps, but from everyday apps to specialized devices you like to use with your students.
Yeah. So again, depending on the student, definitely using iPads are fantastic. Um, Depending on where the student is at, of if they're going to use like a MacBook or a PC and then learn JAWS, which is a screen reader that allows them to access the computer without needing to use the mouse. Um, Using different braille displays that let you Bluetooth to a device, and then the braille display has refreshable braille on it, and then they can pair it to their iPad or their phone or their computer and control that device with the braille display. And then whatever is spoken on the device will then show up in braille, and they can type or write in braille and it'll show up on print or in print on the device. Different things like that. We have different magnifiers and CCTVs, which are just basically a magnifier with a TV screen on it. And yeah, lots of tools, lots of tech, and starting tech as soon as possible is my always biggest thing, because if other students are having things in their hands when they are a couple months old, there's no reason that our students can't have that access as well.
I totally agree with that. Tech as early as possible. We need to get in their hands early, so that they're comfortable when they get to school, or even first, second, third grade. It's such a great, um, I don't know, just such a good idea, and we need to push that more, because I feel like we're not pushing it hard enough. Um, Anna, you were even showing me that you were showing us the Monarch, right? And that's such a cool device. What is that? What kind of impact do you see it having? Uh, can you tell me some more about it?
Yeah, so the Monarch is the latest and greatest. One thing too about technology, especially assistive tech, is as soon as you think you know everything, you don't know anything, because it is always changing and you're
Yes.
never truly an expert because it will constantly change. But just going with the flow with that, of not saying like, oh, this is what we have to use, this is the device that has to be done, because in a year or 2 years or 3 years, it's probably going to be replaced by something else. So I hear a lot of teachers sometimes say like the students aren't ready for it, or that's it's too much, it's too complicated. And it's usually the teacher is scared and overwhelmed, and that's kind of what's impeding the child, because once they have that access, they fly with it. And the Monarch is super cool. It's a joint effort made by Humanware and APH, American Printing House for the Blind, and it is the first ever of its kind. It's a 10 line, 32 cell, so 32 cells, and 10 lines of refreshable braille. You can not only do like words and books and write papers on it, but you can also do tactile graphics. So you can have graphics show up instantly. There's a catalog that you can search through and find a picture. Um, and that is like the coolest thing. I even got to use that with even students that are dual media, so they're learning print and braille. They were looking at, they're talking about a certain kind of leaf, and I didn't have that leaf to actually give to my student. So we looked it up on the Monarch, and we got to explore that what that image of the leaf looked like and the shape of it. And then the other students got to see it too. And it was just such a teachable moment in that moment that was like so cool. The Monarch just came out this fall, like open kind of to the public. It's still kind of in like beta and they're like
Hmm.
updating things. They just came out the other day with a brand new update that there's an app now on your iPad where you can draw a picture with your finger and it automatically draws that on the Monarch, which is just mind blowing when you think of like all the things that you can do that with, of just having the student be able to doodle or see their
Hmm.
signature, or in math class of drawing a triangle versus a square instantly instead of having to have those graphics or shapes or manipulatives. Like whenever you see a TBI, they probably have 17 bags and they're
Hmm.
graciously carrying them all, because we always just need so many materials. So this device just gives us the ability to have it all kind of in one place, and it's amazing. So I'm really enjoying getting to use it and teach people about it, and my student loves it. It's so motivating. It's so cool. So I'm so excited for what else will come of it, and who knows.
Are any of your students using it full time?
No, not right now. And that's the whole device is kind of in the works to replace textbooks, or the need for like a Braille textbook, because you'll be able to get the textbook instantly on the device and then have the words and the print and the images at the same time, which is just like amazing. And the device is fairly expensive. Um, However, people don't realize that every year we have to order these books for our students, whether it's in large print or in Braille, and they can be $3,000 to $6,000 to $9,000 sometimes on one textbook. And
Hmm.
if you've ever been in a classroom in the last 5 years, they don't really use the textbook. They
Hmm.
use it like maybe three times a quarter for one random page. But you can't just get one random page. Like, so we're spending all this money getting these textbooks that the kids aren't even touching. So when you think of it in the long term of things, this device really does provide that access, and it just is, you can't replace that. Like, it's incredible. So they're trying to get it out more and more, and they're doing different, um, it's available, or it should be available via quota funds, which is like funds that our students get, um, for having a visual impairment. So we'll see. They're working on it a lot, and it's very exciting to be a part of the whole thing.
It is, yeah. When you sent a video of you writing on your iPad and it showing up automatically on the Monarch, that like is really revolutionary. I
Yeah,
do agree. It was really cool.
yeah.
Cool. Brianna, how does some of that technology that Anna just described impact your O&M? So if a student's using a screen reader or a Braille display or a Monarch, like
Mhm.
how does that integrate with your training, your travel training, anything like that?
Well, I was like listening to Anna speak. I'm like, I could already see how that could be beneficial, like just like being able to use it quickly on the fly. With my some of my kids, like I have students that like speaking about the leaf, like sometimes we'll just do like a spring nature walk. And, like if I can't find a dandelion or a pine cone or something like that, it would be kind of cool to just be able to like, oh, here's a tactile image of it. Where now, if I need a tactile image of or like a road sign, I just literally had to have that done, and it took weeks to have those printed out and made, and like to just be able to just like, oh, this is what a stop sign feels like. This is the shape of a stop sign. Um, I could 100% see how that could be useful during our orientation and mobility lessons, especially, um, out in the community like that.
Well, you're talking about you 3D print. You had those 3D printed, like the stop sign or
Yes.
whatever the road signs, right?
Yes.
And even
Yes.
we can print them within a
Right, right.
day.
Yeah.
What were we gonna say?
Well, for me, it took way more than a day
Right. No,
to
but
have
like
these done.
what I was gonna say is even though we can print them, let's say it takes us 2 or 3 days to print them,
Yeah.
while you might be able to reuse them it might not always like you. It might be one of those things that then just sits on your shelf or sits in your bag for a couple months. Whereas
Yep.
with something like the Monarch, it's one time and you show it, but then you can always come back to that later. And yeah, so yeah.
Yes. And like, you know, I'm sure you guys know this and other people do too. Kids are super motivated by tech.
Hmm.
So, you know, anytime I use anything with my phone with my students, oh my gosh, it's like the best lesson ever. So I could see how, you know, giving them that autonomy and um, being in charge of their own tech and being able to practically use it when they're out, how that could be really, really, really motivating for them.
Yeah. Um, Anna, what about the reverse? Are there any specific O&M tech tools like GPS apps or travel aids that you would need to coordinate with Brianna on the classroom or charging or maintenance or anything like that?
Yeah, and it's definitely again like of us communicating constantly. So if there is something that she's gonna try and she'll tell me, and then it's like we can practice that and practice the access skills to that app or that device. And even the skill of making sure it's charged before Miss Bree comes.
Mhm.
Those different things are all things that I can work on and I can support to make sure that the student can access them when they are together. So we talk a
And what's
lot.
the biggest misconception you think most people have about assistive technology or orientation mobility or TBI with students who are blind or and low vision? What's the biggest misconception?
That they can't do things.
Hmm.
And that's just not true. They just need to be taught how to do them and maybe taught a different way or given a different tip or tool. But it's never about their vision or anything else that's restricting their access. It's the fact that they are denied access most of the time or denied the opportunity to learn or try. So,
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the school environment. Brianna, what are some simple things, practical things the school can do to make its campus more accessible and easier to navigate?
So I thought about this one for a little bit, and I feel like the most important thing, in my experience, is just if a school has like an inclusive culture and they're open and they're flexible and they embrace new ideas, new recommendations just as they come up. I feel like that itself just makes a huge difference for the student, for the vision team. Um, you don't need to change the school to accommodate for the student. The world isn't like that. So when they leave the school, the world is not accommodating for them. So we need to teach them how to navigate it and we need to teach them how to advocate for themselves so that they're successful when they go out into the world. And having a school community that embraces that, encourages that, makes them feel included, supported, respected, that just builds that confidence that they have so that when they go out into the world, they have that and, you know, that foundational, those skills so they can do it for themselves. That's fine.
Cool. Yeah, and I think
Back-
that was a great answer. No, that's a great answer. I was just trying to think of more, but like the inclusiveness and making sure everyone understands because you're not gonna, it's a building that's probably been there for 30, 40 years. They're not going to be able to change much, right?
They're not
Like,
changing. No, they're not changing much. And, you know, like I know a lot of times, you know, I'll get this question a lot about, you know, taping the stairs or taping things. And sometimes I think that's great. And in some cases it's appropriate, but really just knowing how to use your cane on the stairs is what's appropriate because not every step out in the world is going to be taped for you to provide that contrast. So just, you know, having those skills is great. Um, and just having the having a school embrace that recommend those recommendations and those things that we come up with so the student feels like they're respected and included and that I honestly think that's the biggest thing.
yeah. Anna, from a classroom perspective, what's the one piece of advice you give a gen ed teacher who has a student with a visual impairment for the first time?
breathe. It's all gonna be okay. Um, it's and I don't sugarcoat things very well. It's going to be overwhelming. It's going to feel overwhelming because it's new. Not because it's impossible, not because it's hard, not because it's this, it's because it's new and it's something that you haven't been exposed to. It's something that there's a whole world of people that are certified in this for a reason.
Mhm.
Um, it's going to be a little weird at first. You're going to feel awkward at times, but ask questions and advocate for yourself too. Of if you are feeling overwhelmed, that's why you have a team of people there to help you and the student. It is not, if anything, I think, and I tell teachers all the time, of it makes you a better educator because, and a better human because you have to really be humble and learn new things, even if you've been teaching for older than I am.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sometimes we run into that, but it really does. All the adaptations that we make for students help all the students. It's not just our student that benefits from it. So just being open to that and being open to the suggestions and just the more collaboration and communication that can happen, the easier it will be. And it is, I've made some great connections with teachers and that's what the thing that they'll say at the end of the year, like, yeah, this made me a better teacher. And that is very true. So it's gonna be okay.
Breathe. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, this one's for both of you. So successful implementation is a team effort. We know that. And how vital is the collaboration not only between the service providers and the teacher and the para, but also the family and even some of the other school community, um, making sure that both their AT and their own skills are O and M skills are used effectively.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important pieces of an IEP is being a team and approaching the entire situation as a team. It's not us against the school. It's not us against the family. It's not us against the kid. It is we are all on the same team trying to do what's best for the student. And the faster we can all agree and get in line in that, the better off we all are and the student is. So important to communicate, to be honest about things, to provide, like I know with our team, like we have schedules are open, like you can access different things of when we're all coming. It's all very we're constantly sharing resources and tools
Hmm.
and things like that. But that's really why our team is so strong because we are all on the same page to do what's best for the student, and we all support each other in doing that, and the family included, which is an amazing thing when that like all comes together.
Mhm.
Well, and one thing that we do that I would like to implement more, and I've been trying to, is our monthly team meeting. And even if it's just us three getting together and talking, but also giving the platform for the teacher and the para and anyone else who has questions to come in and talk. And we do it virtually, so it's easy, so anyone can jump on.
Mhm.
Um, that's such an easy way of getting that collaboration done so that we're all on board and we all know what's going on.
Yep.
Cool.
Agreed.
Cool. Here's another one. This is a big topic for me, and the podcast in general, and its transition. So when you're preparing a high school student for life after graduation, what's the most critical O&M skills? What's the most critical AT that maybe they need to have mastered in order to go to college or into the workplace? Brand, I want to hear your. Is there anything that you can tell
Mhm.
us?
Sure. So, I'm not gonna sit here and say like one orientation and mobility skill is better than the other or more important than the other because I think they're all important. And I mentioned this conference we went to a few months ago, and they actually had a presentation where they interviewed employed, independent, um, visually impaired adults and kind of asked them that question like, you are here now. And what would you say were the biggest skills or lessons or things that you think got you to where you currently are? And I would say 99% of them, their response was their self advocacy skills, their ability to ask for help and the type of help that they need was important for them just in their day to day at college, when they were employed, and then being able to confidently say what they need, when they need it, how they need it, what kind of supports they need, and declining support that they don't need. And majority of them said that was probably the biggest skill in their life that they could think of that's really helped them moving forward. So I know we talk about that a lot with our kids, but I feel like that for me just reinforced like how important that is. And like when they're little, really starting those um like little opportunities and modeling what it looks like for them, so that they can build that themselves and eventually just take it over themselves and be like, no, I'm confident. I'm going to tell you, like, I don't need that. No, no, thank you. You don't have to help me cross the street. I don't, um, so I feel like that's probably the biggest thing I could think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anna, do you have any AT skills that you think are most critical for a student going from high school to the real world?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love for them to be completely ready with their tech and be proficient typers and be able to start adapting their own materials and being a part of all that process. But honestly, when kids get to high school, it kind of becomes a thing of we can teach the skills, but we cannot make kids use them. So just being consistent in our instruction and the way that we teach kids to advocate, the way that we teach them to look up resources and to find those resources, because oftentimes it doesn't become they don't use it until they need to use it, and that's we taught them the skill. That's what we did
Hmm.
our job for. And a lot of students that I work with at Kutztown, there's quite a few in our program that are visually impaired, and they'll say to me all the time, like, I took good advantage of my TBI, or I wish my TBI would have shown me this or did this, but I had an attitude. So like I get why they didn't, but I wish I would have gotten these skills. So it's kind of something too of teaching students that there's kind of consequences to not using it. Like we're not doing this to be mean or like to pull you out of class and like whatever. It's like we're doing this because you need to learn how to use it and like you need to learn how to be proficient and it's only going to help you in the long run. So it's kind of a fine line, but yeah, definitely the advocacy is huge, and that the piece of saying no when you don't need help, because we don't want them to become dependent on that or kind of take advantage of that. So being able to say, "Hey, listen, I appreciate you offering, but I got this. Like, thank you." And just the way to make that appropriate without um, being rude or um, having an attitude about it. So just all of those skills we hope that they carry over, but it really is up to the student at that point then to carry them over.
Good. That's self-advocacy. Yes. Cool. All right. So now we're gonna have some rapid fire questions. Just whatever comes to your mind. The first couple will be fun and personal, not too personal. And the second round is going to be more like an AT and orientational mobility focus. So a TBI, that kind of thing. So here we go. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
Okay. Do you have a certain order? Like if you go out to like Starbucks or Dunkin' or a place, do you have a certain order you always get, or do you just drink it black?
Cream and sugar. Ugh.
I like lattes
Okay.
with
Oh,
Cool.
whipped cream.
Cool. I like it.
fancy.
Beach or mountain vacation?
Beach.
Beach.
Sweet or savory snacks?
Sweet.
Mm, I'm gonna say savory.
Brianna, do you have a favorite sweet snack you eat, like a favorite chocolate?
Oh, I really like Milano cookies.
Ooh. And Anna, how about you? Do you
I like
have a
my
favorite?
weakness.
Anna, do you have a favorite salty, savory snack?
Mm, maybe I actually thought when my mind went to sweet being like candy and savory being like chocolate, so I totally read that wrong. So I'd say sweet in any kind of chocolate.
Oh, I like it. And then I know the answer for this one, at least for Anna. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Dogs.
Favorite season?
Summer.
Yeah, summer. Oh my
Oh
gosh,
man,
we're so aligned.
you guys. Well, podcast or music for a commute?
Pod
Music or book.
Music or book? How about you, Brianna?
podcast.
Podcast. Do you have a favorite podcast, Brianna?
Today Explained and The Daily are like my 2 that my go-tos.
Those are cool. Anna, do you listen to any podcasts?
Sometimes I'm not a huge podcaster. I'm a
No.
huge book reader or like Audible. Like I listen to books on my drives, so
Cool. Call or text?
text.
Mm.
Same.
I'm the person that will hang up your phone call and then text you and say, "What do you want?"
Why are you calling me?
Yeah, and that could have been a text.
Favorite book?
Ooh, Anna, you go
Wh-
first.
Mine is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Okay.
Oh. Probably anything by, like, Kristen Hanna. I know she's,
What
like,
is
she's popular now, but, I've read a couple of her books, like The Nightingale, Four Winds, um, The Women.
cool?
You can find her at Target.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Try to fly.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, yeah, flying's pretty cool. I would probably pick that too, or like time or what's it called? Like when you transport somewhere else, like really
Time,
quick.
not time travel. Are you talking
Yeah,
about like
like, I
be
could
able to
just
like
be
snap your
Transportation.
you know, like
That'd be
that.
yeah,
cool.
like snap your finger and all of a sudden you're in Delaware. Snap your finger, you're back at
Yes.
your house, right?
Oh,
Yes.
that'd be nice.
It'd
Yeah.
be
We,
so
me and my kids talk about it all the time when we go on long drives. We're like, man, we wish we could snap our finger right now and we'd be out of here.
yeah, I would go all over the world.
Teleport.
Yes,
Yes,
teleport.
yes.
Did you have to Google that, Anna?
No, it just came to my head.
Because I couldn't think of it. So if you did, I wasn't. All right, here we go. So we're now going to be a little more AT, TBI, O&M focused. So what's your favorite low tech solution in your field? Brianna, we'll go with you first.
Um, Probably the one that I use most often right now. It's called the Talking Compass, and that I'm assuming that's what you mean by low tech. Like,
Hmm.
it's just a free app on your phone, and it will audibly tell you north, south, east, or west,
Cool.
which I use very often.
How about you, Anna?
Mine would probably be an abacus. People don't think of like a brailler or an abacus as tech, but it really is because it helps students access their curriculum. And the abacus is just a very cool tactile tool to help with math and counting. And you can do advanced things all the way up to fractions and multiplication. But it also is just great for place value and learning numbers and um, that one-to-one correspondence. So I'm a big fan of the abacus.
What is the biggest myth you'd like to bust about your profession?
I think for me, it would probably just be that I'm not a TVI. I feel like everyone just kind of just assumes that they're that's my job. So just kind of explaining that's not my job. Someone else does a better job at all of those things than I do.
How about you, Anna?
I'd probably say that we try to make not that, and I don't know, maybe there's, I think people think this sometimes, but of that we're trying to make people's jobs harder or we're trying to cause problems or whatever when all we're doing is advocating for students and what they need. And so sometimes that means disrupting what's been done for
Mhm.
a very long time or having to change things that have been done forever. And that's not because we're trying to make things harder for people, it's or that our student deserves more. It's just that is what literally our student needs,
Mhm.
and it needs to happen. So we're only doing what's best for students. So sometimes it just stinks that it's perceived that way.
Right. What's the most exciting innovation you've seen recently?
The monarch.
I knew. I
I
agree.
knew.
Always.
I totally agree with that.
I
But
knew that.
yes.
If I had to pick one for O&M wise right now, I there's this new cane tip that I feel like it's been out for like a few months now. But it's called the Pathfinder 360. And I've seen that, like I haven't tried it yet. But I've seen videos of it and it looks pretty cool. And I can think of a few students that would probably love it. So,
Well, what does it do?
so you know how like the rolling ball tip only goes from left to right,
Hmm.
really? So this tip, it kind of like it almost like if I'm kind of gonna try and describe it to you. So it's like the rolling ball tip, but there's like a split down the middle.
Hmm.
So it can roll from left to right. It can roll forward and back.
Oh,
It goes
wow.
360.
That's
So
really cool.
yeah, so it seems like it would be cool, and I've seen videos on like the pros and the cons of both, but I haven't actually tried it myself. Um, but something cool and new that is worth giving a try, I think.
Would that be something you could 3D print possibly?
Ooh, I don't know.
Do you
I
have
would
a 3D
assume
printer,
that one
Bree?
would.
I don't know. I feel like that would be kind of complicated maybe with the
Yeah, there's
whole
a lot of moving parts with that. And you'd
yeah,
have to really be a good 3D printer too. I'm sure
Well,
they'll get there one day, but it's cane tips are a lot more complicated than
oh yeah.
people think.
What I was thinking now, I'm gonna have to look up a picture of it. But what I was thinking is almost like there's a cup and there's a separate ball inside of it. But I'm guessing that this is even more than that.
it's more than that. Yeah.
Okay.
So they
It's
have
like
like
two half spheres
yes.
that
Okay.
like rotate. Yeah.
Okay.
And then even like the part that connects to the actual the cane hook that itself also like spins and turns. So it would be complicated to 3D
Yeah.
print.
Oh yeah. One word to describe the future of your field.
Limitless.
Cool.
Exciting.
Yeah, I like it. And so, are there any before we get to we have our little game, and I know you need to get off pretty soon. So, are there any other apps or technologies that either of you wanted to highlight that we may have not already talked about during the interview?
I don't
I can't think of any that we didn't talk about, but probably by the time this airs, there'll be something new.
Well,
So,
of course, yeah.
just going with the flow of, I mean, there's so many really cool apps, even ones that can help students read and access books. Um, One that we use with like my dual media student is Voice Dream, and that allows her to download a ton of different books that she has access to through an account with Bookshare. And then can it can read to her. She can double tap on a word and have it read out loud, and that has been a huge motivator for her and just really helped her fluency and to make her kind of read a little bit faster and just have more like access to books. So that has been um, really, really helpful with things. But you can also do really cool things with slides, like on
Hmm.
just Google Slides and making different things, making interactive resources for students, and just providing access that way of different flashcards that can be then zoomed in and accessed on any device. So just being more open and um, allowing yourself to be creative of how else could this be accessed? How else could we um, do this for the student, and asking the student, like, what do you think? What do you want to use? Which
Hmm.
app do you like better? Because really they're the one using it. And sometimes we think something is like the coolest thing and they're like, this is dumb. And so that really helps to get them involved in that process.
Cool. Anything from you, Brianna?
I feel like if I was going to highlight one that I've probably used very frequently, specifically with younger students that are just kind of learning like appropriate cane technique. And a lot of times with teaching the arc width, it's really difficult for them to carry it over and get it correctly. So there's this app called the Musical Cane Game, which I kind of I feel like I got it when it was like still in like like maybe just out of like the testing phase because I have like the old version where you like actually like attach the sensor to the cane. I don't know if it's still like that. I'm sure they've made it much better now. Um, but it's like a little sensor you attach to the cane. You program in your phone how many inches of arc width the cane should be moving. And if the student is traveling and doing the appropriate arc width, it will play a music of their choice. So like it pairs with my phone. So one of the cool things I've done in my lessons, I have a student that doesn't like music, which I was like, okay, well, this is the musical cane game. Like, how are we going to rectify this? And then I was like, but you do love nature sounds. So we put like on rain sounds
Mm.
and he could control the weather. So it
Oh,
was really
wow.
cool. So he controlled the weather and would make it rain or make the ocean waves start or stop. So it's like super motivating and it's fun and it works because they love hearing the sound. So it carries over because they'll want to sweep appropriately so that they can hear the sound and make the weather change or hear the song. And over time, it becomes like a habit.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I'm gonna check out that musical cane game. It's an app on the iPhone, iPad kind of thing.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I hope we have enough time. We're gonna play a game. It's gonna be called Focus on the Facts. I'm gonna play actually, here you go. Let's see.
Focus on the facts, facts. Focus on the facts, facts. Focus on the FACTS.
We're gonna play a quick game to try to get you out in 4 minutes. I'll read a statement I've heard about students with visual impairments. You just tell me if it's a myth or a fact and a quick reason why. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
All right. People who are legally blind see nothing but darkness.
That's a myth. Blindness is a spectrum, and people see all different types of things. Some people see shadows, some people see colors, some people see outlines. So totally depends on the student and their vision.
Cool. Braille isn't really necessary anymore because of audiobooks and screen readers.
Myth. Braille is just as important as print, and if print still exists, then Braille should exist.
Cool. It's rude to use the words like see or look in conversations with people or with a person who is blind.
Myth.
Myth.
Why,
Myth.
Brianna?
It's totally okay. It's just a part of our normal speak. So you don't have to change how you would normally talk to someone just because the person you're speaking with is visually impaired.
A white cane is only used to detect obstacles on the ground.
Myth. The white cane is used for lots of purposes. That is one of them, but there's also sensory feedback that a person that's using a cane gets. For instance, we were talking about orientation, and so just knowing like, oh, I went from a smooth surface to a bumpy surface. Now I know where I am. Um, there's that's just one example of a reason why it's not just used for detecting obstacles.
Cool. Assistive technology for visual impairments is always very expensive and high tech.
Myth. Assistive technology is more than just expensive tech equipment. It can be low tech solutions like a line guide or using a sticky note to track your line of reading.
Cool. A student's visual acuity score is a good predictor of their academic potential.
Myth. Acuity is basically what you're seeing, and when you think of an acuity, perfect acuity is 20/20. So if you have an acuity of 20/80, 2200, 2300, basically the bigger the bottom number is, the worse that person's vision is. To be visually impaired, your acuity needs to be 20/70 or worse with correction, or have a field loss. And to be legally blind, it would need to be 2200 with correction or, again, with a different field loss. But that has nothing to do with what they can achieve or academically be in classes for. They just need access to those materials and to be taught the skills to access them.
Orientation and mobility instruction is only for students who are totally blind or use a white cane.
Myth. O&M benefits a wide range of students, including those that have low vision, and they just need to learn how to use their available vision more efficiently, so that they can navigate their environment safely.
Cool. When guiding a student with a visual impairment, you should take them by the arm or shoulder to steer them.
Myth. That's terrifying. Don't do that. Um, no, the student should be the one in control and should be the one holding on to their guide, not the other way around.
Well, you take their control basically, right?
Yeah. Yes. No one likes to be pulled or pushed. So don't do that.
Students with significant visual impairment should be placed at the front of the classroom every single time.
Myth. That's totally dependent on the student's condition and the way that they see, and that should be determined by the functional vision assessment that the TVI will do, and also communicate with the O&M to make sure that they have access to the space, but not always in the front.
Cool. And the last one, a screen reader works just like an audiobook, reading text from the beginning to end.
That's a myth. A screen reader reads the screen of the device that you're using, and it allows you to use different keystrokes and keyboard commands to control and navigate through whatever you're accessing. So you can read an audiobook, or go on the internet. You can go on Instagram. You can send an email, and you're basically just controlling the computer with different commands, and then the screen reader is reading whatever you're interacting with and whatever you're entering into the computer or device.
Thank you. Looking ahead, what makes you most optimistic about the future of visual access technology and mobility for your students?
Just that it keeps changing. And I think that's a good thing. It's hard sometimes to keep up and it kind of feels overwhelming at times to constantly be learning something new, but that's also what makes you a good educator. So the fact that it is still evolving is awesome because it's only bettering our students and their families.
Brianna, is there any tech? Yeah, I'm gonna say, is there any technology that you see upcoming that might be very interesting for someone who is visually impaired?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is in the few short years that I've been in this field, I've come into contact with lots of college students that are interested and passionate about developing tech that improves um, lives of individuals that have visual impairments. So I feel like makes me very optimistic for where things are going, and how just the goodness in people.
Yeah. And even companies like Apple, who have great assistive tech, they are still evolving their accessibility options. And now things like the Meta glasses, that I think is going to be something pretty cool in the future and even now, of allowing people to scan environments and it'll tell them what they're looking at. So just all those different things that are still, and even just AI, using that to take a picture and then say, what am I looking at? What is this? And it is gotten so much better now at providing descriptions and or even changing text, which is just awesome. So
Cool. For any educators, parents, or even students, if they're listening, what is the first step they should take if they think they need a TBI or O&M assessment?
talk to the school, set up a meeting with whoever is in charge of that. Sometimes it's the school counselors, sometimes it's the principal. It can start with just the teacher, and they can steer you in the right direction to however the school runs their special education services. And they can then have a meeting and discuss your concerns, and then request a functional vision assessment and learning media assessment, and then an orientation mobility evaluation.
Cool. And is there a way for us to stay connected with either of you? How we can find out more about your services? Is there anything you want to tell us about? You guys kind of got free reign right here.
We both work for Out of Sight Teaching LLC, that is based in New Jersey. So you can always visit that website, outofsightteaching.com, and that if you Google my name, you'll probably find my Google site and a bunch of really old, embarrassing interviews. But I have lots of resources out there if you want to Google my name.
Cool. Thank you for a great conversation. They always go much longer than I think they will. This one, I think we're now almost at an hour, or over an hour. But this was a lot of good information you guys passed along, and I really loved it. So thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
And that's a wrap on another episode of AT Talks. A huge thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. We love making this podcast and building this community with all of you. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. The team at the Assistive Technology Center at TCNJ is dedicated to supporting educators across New Jersey. If you were inspired by today's discussion and want to bring high-quality, free professional development to your district, Vanessa and Madison are ready to help. To learn how you can partner with the center and build capacity in your school, head over to our website. You can find all the information you need at atcenter.tcnj.edu. And while you're there, we want to hear from you. Visit the podcast tab. There you can send us a question through our Google form, or even better, leave us a voice message on SpeakPipe for us to play live on the show. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay up to date on all our latest events and resources. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube with the handle @ATCenterTCNJ. And don't forget to subscribe to AT Talks on whatever platform you're listening on right now so you never miss an episode. On behalf of Vanessa, Madison, and myself, Brian, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.